Some of the relatives came. Something very interesting.
But they didn't play a very high-profile part in the television production, did they?
No, but I didn't watch it. I couldn't watch that.
Well, I didn't either, but people emailed me if there had been something like his grandmother, his step-grandmother from Kenya, or his sister from Kenya, his half-sister from Kenya.
You know what?
I would have got emails about it.
Yeah, I didn't have hygienic bags with.
You have to watch it in your dental office. Hygienic
keep
stuff.
them handy now.
But okay, so we remove Obama. Now we're stuck with Biden. Now what?
I think, and that's something that I've written on my blog. Please go on my blog. It's defendourfreedoms.us. And I've written an article that not only we need to have a new election, but we need to clean up our voting machines of all software that was produced abroad. And we need to have a simultaneous vote by the citizens, where the citizens can actually vote and check the ballots, because with the software, anything and everything can happen.
I've got to applaud you. I've been saying this for months and months.
Count those ballots in the
Orly,
precincts.
we used to count our ballots in our precincts.
Yes.
I can remember when I first moved here to Santa Maria, the city of the Michael Jackson Inquisition, by a vindictive and idiotic district attorney who's been replaced by another idiotic and vindictive attorney, only it's female and she's blonde and somewhat attractive, at least to her husband. But in this city, I remember seeing the poll workers sit there and count. Oh, the count is wrong, and they do it over again and count again, because most of them were like 50, 60, 70 years old.
Until they finally learn how to count, right?
And they'd have to count and count, and they'd do the third count and say, now watch, and they'd count in until they got it right. Then they'd call it in.
Yeah.
And they'd fill out little pieces of paper, so-and-so, and each election got so many votes. Then they did away with that. And I had Mr. Smith from our county election come up to the show, actually. It wasn't in this studio. The studio didn't exist then, but our show was done down in Orcutt at New World Productions, and he had this wonderful dipole voting machine. And he set it up, and he said, I'm going to show you how good this works. And he started slipping the votes in, and he put up the thing, and it was wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe I should dig up that tape, but I thought, well, it's just a fluke. He didn't have time to set it up properly, test it properly. But it wasn't a fluke. It turns out that happens a lot. So how do we get America so quickly to dump Sequoia, dump these voting machines that were clearly written to steal elections? And that's what the big fuss was down in Florida in 2000. To create the push to have these voting machines, and then they had that federal legislation with, what, $5 billion? No vote left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll dig up those dead people. We'll help them vote. We'll get that 12-year-old to vote. No vote left behind.
Unless it's for
It's for
loving individual.
the chosen candidate, the pre-selected candidate. Then or the non-selected candidate. Then we can lose it. And to me, I was so outraged, not just because I was for Ron Paul, but because I saw a good doctor, 50 years married with the same wife Carol Paul, 5 great children, all functioning children, doing very well, which says something about the father and something about the mother. And then you had grandchildren, all functioning and doing very well. And they couldn't find anything. I had a guy call me up from Atlanta, Georgia. And he said, I understand you're the meetup leader for Ron Paul. I said, yeah, that's true. And he says, well, do you know Ron Paul? I says, well, I've met him several times, and I've been tracking him. He said, you put that videotape from 25 years up. Yeah, I did that in Utah. He says, well, do you know of any dirt on Ron Paul? It would be worth money, Mr. Wagener.
That's horrible.
And I said, actually, I do. Ron Paul has an addiction. And the phone got very quiet. And I held my breath, and I'm chuckling. I'm and finally
To smack the idiots.
and the guy in there said, What is the addiction? I says, do you really want to know? Yes. He's addicted to warm chocolate chip cookies. And he sometimes sends his staff out to get them on taxpayers' dollars. And I said, now do I get the $10,000? And he says, no, Mr. Wagener, that's not what we had in mind.
No kidding.
And you could just hear the, at first he's like, oh, somebody knows Ron Paul for 25 years and he's going to give us a scoop. And I knew he was taping on the other side.
Of course.
Yeah.
He was taping every word I said. And I
thought sure you were going to say he was addicted to freedom.
Yeah.
Well, he is addicted to freedom, but he's addicted for freedom for everybody.
That's right.
And he's pro-life, which irritates some libertarians. But he's never lied about it. What I like about Dr. Ron Paul is he's always been consistent. He doesn't go to the pro-abortion people and say something different, and then go to the pro-life people and say something different, and then go to the gun confiscators and say, well, maybe, some guns should be confiscated, and then go to the gun club and say, oh, we're going to protect our Second Amendment right. He's consistent all the time. Whether you agree with him or not, he's consistently for freedom. And yes, I was disappointed when I saw the media put him down. They almost laughed at him. I can't remember this bimbo on some major network of CNN or something, almost like, oh, Dr. Paul, aren't you sort of like a wasted candidate or something? And he said, no, really, it's up to the people. They will decide.
Yeah.
And he didn't take the insult for the insult. The man is absolutely the epitome of what America needed.
Yes.
And the one thing that got him in trouble is he came out against the Federal Reserve.
And then when Huckabee
and then they went to
agreed
Huckabee.
with him, boy, they just dropped him like a
They
hot
dropped
potato.
Huckabee. And they're trying to bring Huckabee back by giving him his own show on Fox. I don't know if it's still running. I don't watch propaganda channels like the Hitler Youth and Fox. I try to avoid these kind of programming.